Arrays and data files. What are data files and why are they useful? Examples in something called high-level versus low-level functions. A while back when we introduced arrays, we introduced when to use them. Option 4 was upload tremendous amount of data from files. And the particular example that was taken from online was a file about meteorology that would help us track the hurricanes. This requires a lot of data points, so arrays are very useful in that category. Now, why are we going to use files? Well, they can hold millions of data points, sure, but they can also be saved and used again at a later time, and it's a tremendous communication tool between you, the programmer, and the client. This is something that can be emailed very easily. As far as being saved and used again at a later time, some example for that specific advantage is backing up current results. If we want to do millions and millions of calculations that may take days or months, we might want to save our data every so often. Maybe a power failure will make us lose our data. So if we save into a file, it's less likely that we'll have to restart all over. Why are we using them with arrays? Well, they usually contain a lot of data points. And arrays is very useful because one variable contains a lot of data points. As far as the files that we can use, no matter what we look at, there are definitely a sequence of zeros and ones. But officially there's two types of files. If the zeros and ones can be matched with the ASCII characters, so every single sequence of 0 and 1 in the file actually means something with regard to the ASCII table, then it is called an ASCII text file. On the other hand, if some of the zeros and ones do not represent text, maybe margins, size, font name, colors, even spacing, columns and rows, for example, in Excel sheets, then it's called a binary file. There is a list online that tells us what each extension is, a binary file or a text file. For example, HTML used for web page is a text file. TXT is a text file, bin is a binary. Images, JPEG, PNG, and GIF are all binaries. MATLAB files is a text file. And the most common ones that we're used to, Doc and Excel, are binary files. So it is very recognized what type of file is what. Word documents have margin, have formatting issues, those are binary. Excel sheets are definitely binary files. And images. As for ASCII text, you'll notice it's very different. It's always text, text, text. This is an HTML file, this is a text file, and this is a data file, .dat. All these are ASCII text files. Now how can you tell if one day a client gives you a file that you're not sure about? Just open Notepad and drag and drop the file. If you see something like this, you know it's a binary file, because it makes no sense. A doc file, for example, has, again, margins and a lot of formatting involved. When you drag and drop it into Notepad, there's a lot more than just text. If the client gives you a .dat file and you drop it in Notepad, you'll notice that there is something we can look at. We see numbers, it's not just a bunch of weird symbols. So it's very easy to tell. Now don't be afraid as far as MATLAB is concerned, it has a lot of built-in functions. We can search the MATLAB help for data import-export. And there's a long list of all the functions that we can use. Opening, loading, and saving, some for text files, some for spreadsheets, for Microsoft Excel specifically, and a lot of low-level files, images. So MATLAB has, thankfully, a lot of functions built in for us. Particularly this semester we will learn read and write for Excel and DLM read, DLM write for text files. Now consider that there are two types of functions. Out of all those functions, we kind of group them in two different categories. The one that are considered high level. One line of code will actually upload the data into arrays automatically created. This means that MATLAB will look at the file, the programmer will type one line, and MATLAB extracts the data automatically, creates the columns, the rows, and even figures out how many rows and columns it needs. So it's very, very high level. On the opposite side, there's something called low level. Multiple lines of code, multiple functions need to be used, possibly even loops. There's just so much more to do with low-level functions. The programmer may even have to create the array by coding the necessary line. So it is called low level because there's more work to do. Now, which function to use before we actually jump to examples? Just open the input file first. If the client sends you a file, open it and look at what's inside. If it's an Excel sheet, it's very straightforward. We will go with XLS read. If it's not, if it's anything other than Excel, we'll just double-click the file and look at it. If it's a bunch of numbers, and really only numbers, they're all neatly organized, we might go with DLM read. So this is a brief introduction. What are files used for? Why are they useful? Why are they used with arrays very often? Binary versus ASCII text files, high-level and low-level functions, and easily decide whether to use high-level or low-level functions. Now next, of course, are examples with high-level functions.